Thank you for tuning in and welcome to CTO Talk. I am your host, Matt Ferrari. On this 30-minute program, we get to discuss the issues, challenges, and opportunities that are impacting healthcare and technology. You can follow the show on Twitter at #CTO Talk or follow me at @MPFerrari. I get to see challenges about the topic we're going to talk about every single day. So really, today we're going to have a really interesting topic to talk about. We're going to talk about things like diagnostic delivery for genomics-centered medicine. And I'm grateful to be joined today with the CEO of Farsight Genome Systems, Glenda Anderson. Glenda, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Matt. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, really excited to have the conversation. Would you mind kind of sharing with the audience today a little bit more about Farsight?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Farsight is really born of the conviction that precision medicine will soon become standard of care for most medical diseases. We see in the next decade, all medicine will be precision medicine. This means that laboratories across the country and around the world need new software tools and platforms that allow them to deliver not only an expanding set of gene tests, but an expanding set of gene tests exquisitely tuned to specific disease stages, indications, and subsets of patients that are not yet fully understood or defined. This tight but loose control of diagnostic medicine is really essential to turning what we're now discovering in the translational medicine side into actual practical clinical genomics.
Very great. I've been talking to folks recently on a very similar topic, and I was thinking this morning around change. You just mentioned something visionary, right? Over the next decade, we're going to see that shift into precision medicine. How do we get clinicians and providers to accept this? Obviously, that's a big change.
Yep. I think it's happening behind the scenes faster than we think. I was just at the regional meeting for the IASLC. It's a group of international lung cancer specialists who are at the leading edge of care of lung cancer patients. I go to these meetings with enough frequency. 2 years ago, there was a debate on stage about whether multi-gene testing and sequencing was important or not in the workup of a patient.
Sure.
They weren't sure. It was a draw. Just in this last 6 months, it's been really across the board. Everyone speaking from the podium said the first thing you should do is get your patient sequenced.
Wow.
Because there are enough variants we know that should affect treatment that it should be done.
Wow.
Now, of course, as soon as academic leaders and medical societies start to carry the banner, that pushes itself down into routine care with amazing speed.
Yeah.
Every lung cancer specialist reads their journals, and their journals start to promulgate this belief. And pretty soon every lung cancer patient will indeed be sequenced. So, I see this as the first of several indications to follow this pattern.
That's interesting. So I did not think about this. Almost my entire family's in healthcare. And my father was a neuropsychologist and studied brain injuries, brain development problems, folks who gotten cataclysmic accidents. But you just said something that I forgot about since I was a young boy. He lived by his journals.
Yes.
He absolutely did. So
yes.
that becomes law almost. So as I think about that, how do we get this to happen? Is it an education challenge, or what is the driving force?
Well, that's what's so interesting about the way Farsight has chosen to break this problem apart and then reassemble it. I mean, that's the power of technology.
Yeah.
We view precision medicine, particularly the laboratory's role, as comprised of 3 components.
Okay. The
wet lab process, taking the physical biopsy and extracting the molecules of interest, and processing that on a sequencer or instrument. Second step then is the analytics, passing those raw reads through a nice, well-managed, well-validated pipeline to deliver the results that can then be interpreted. So wet lab processing, analytics, and finally interpretation. The experts in each of those three areas, our expertise required to do well in each of those three areas is quite different. Laboratories have really exquisite expertise in wet lab, in managing patient samples and extracting materials of interest in a nice, well-controlled, protocol-driven way. They should be left to, they've got what they need in that arena.
Sure.
The analytics is much tougher. Most laboratories will be the first to tell you they are not software experts.
Yeah.
When setting up a pipeline and tuning parameters, oh man, most laboratory directors don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Yeah. It's just easy to get wrong, and not know you've got it wrong, which is what's so treacherous.
It's so funny you say that. A bit different, but when I think about analytics, and this has been a hot topic every year I've come to HIMSS. There is so many technology solutions, right? There is anything from big data solutions to entire organizations that deploy this, enterprise solutions, open source solutions. But I've been pondering in healthcare, there's very little in terms of practical application and what do you actually do with the data. I have not seen a great solution for that to date. So I don't know what your thoughts are.
So in fact, that's where Farsight really plays.
Yeah.
This analytic pipeline. We take raw read data from any sequencer and using any target enrichment. We take a test panel that's been predefined. We'll talk in a minute about how those test panels are developed.
Sure.
Smash them together in a systematic way that identifies every variant that can be deleterious to genes that are important to the test panel and associates it with treatment recommendations that have been pre-assigned by the test panel.
Okay.
So by handling this in a nice, clean, systematic way, we're able to take this raw data, turn it into something a laboratory really understands. And it's not a black box.
Right. That's
it's
amazing.
Very transparent.
Yeah, that's amazing. To take a step back, tell me about the origins of Farsight Genome Systems. What led to the founding and the problems you guys are ultimately solving?
I've been fascinated by this area for some time. I think Farsight was probably born out of some of the work I did at Pathwork before.
Yeah.
Both companies were really born from a conviction that laboratories didn't have the tools they needed to be the kinds of players they should be, to take the role they should take in precision medicine. I knew there was a tsunami of translational science that was washing up on
wow.
our medical shores, so to speak.
Okay.
And I knew laboratories needed more robust toolkit. So much of what I saw as I worked closely with Agilent, Illumina, and several of the other players, the tools that were emerging really envisioned a clinical laboratory as nothing more than a research laboratory with regulations. The issues that a clinical laboratory faces are really much different.
Sure.
Cost, turnaround, precision in the sense of validation, rigor. There are a whole set of scientific and clinical requirements that really separate them. Yeah,
I've had the opportunity to speak to some folks on this topic, and typically what I have heard is the two of the largest challenges they face. You just named more than two, but I've heard rework, right, from a precision perspective. Do I really trust the outcome? And I've heard time to market. How long does it actually take to get done? So I don't know if you've had thoughts there.
Yes, those are both important features.
Okay.
I think as we know, genomic tests are never as fast as the blood test today.
Sure.
I mean, the blood test today, you put the blood in and you measure turnaround in minutes.
Yeah.
A genomic experiment requiring you to extract DNA, purify it, prepare the library, run it through the sequencer end to end. The experiment itself can be a 10-day process.
Sure.
We can collapse some of those steps, but there's still some overnight incubation, overnight hybridization. Some of those steps just take time because you're playing with the biology, the biochemistry. So this will always be a little slower science than the blood
Sure.
world is
Sure.
accustomed to, but the patients are still waiting for that answer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. As I think about some of the future of Farsight, what challenges are you trying to overcome this year in the space? What is, if you had to, let's say, pick one thing, what is that one thing that you're hoping to accomplish for Farsight in the next year?
I have
two.
I'm going to have to ask for two.
Well, let's do it. Let's do it.
One, and I know some of your listeners may take issue with this, but we really do believe FDA has a role to play in this field. And so one of our big goals for the next 12 to 18 months is to complete an FDA clearance for our analytic product. We know it will change the life of the laboratory using us. We know it will rationalize a lot of the noise that's surrounding precision medicine, improve the quality of the data, which then improves the quality, the reliability of the results we present to patients.
Yeah.
So FDA clearance is one. The second, which is a little more subtle, is a test panel that we've developed in partnership with the medical society.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier the IASLC, a terrific organization around lung cancer.
Mm-hmm.
We want to work with them to create the first in silico guideline.
Wow.
Rather than publishing guidelines in their journals as they do today with the high reliability. Let us transform that into a test panel that laboratories across the country can apply uniformly to deliver every lung cancer physician the same set of answers from data that was prepared locally.
Yeah, I hadn't thought that one through. That is transformative. So if I think about even my business, I think about things like reference architectures and guidelines. And the truth is, since there's so many ways to cut the onion, as soon as you can get to the point where you're providing documented evidence or prescriptive evidence about show me the artifacts of why this is effective or why this is the right way to build things out, it becomes the norm. It becomes completely adopted. So that is interesting.
We think that's the way precision medicine finds its way into routine practice. Again, back at the start, we divide this problem into three parts. The wet lab, laboratories are capable of. Analytics, we think we bring value there. The test panel or the interpretation, we think medical societies are where those decisions should be made and that data should be curated. We've built a system that lets us harness all three of those best practices or best capabilities in a really novel and unique way.
That's amazing. Yeah. So if you're just
thank you for your excitement about Matt, it's really gratifying to hear.
I was about to say, if you're just tuning in, this is Matt Ferrari, the CTO that is running with CTO Talk today. You have myself and Glenda Anderson, CEO of Farsight Genome Systems. You hear me geeking out about the future of healthcare. To be quite honest, this is an exciting topic for me. We're really talking about precision medicine, genomics, and really the changing landscape of healthcare, which is great. Oftentimes I am talking about challenges in healthcare. Maybe it is EMR migration or integration or interoperability or pop health, or really some of the challenges to really drive healthcare forward. But this is really about changing the landscape of patient care and changing the landscape of how to really help folks before they even know that they're ill. And candidly, this is an important topic for me. In my own job, we get to our largest challenge, and I think probably most of healthcare's largest challenges at the company level is talent and getting talent, finding talent. And at my company, we try to only hire talent that is passionate about healthcare in some way. And I'm guessing, Glenda, that's not a problem at Farsight. You probably have folks that are just crazy passionate for what you're doing.
We've been really fortunate to find some extraordinary talent. My co-founder, Charlie Kim, is an extraordinary architect.
Okay.
Very visionary, able to put together, really make all of these moving parts work together as a unified whole. isn't that part of the art of a brilliant architect and CTO?
Yeah.
Someone who can break apart a vision into some implementable pieces, put them back together in a way that they interoperate seamlessly and reliably.
Yeah, absolutely. I was to break away for a moment from Farsight. I was looking at some of your experience, and you have been a founder and a CTO. So, what advice, or thoughts do you have for listeners out there? As a CEO now, what do you wish that CTOs understood? And what advice do you have out there?
Matt, that's a really fun question, because I think CTOs have the hardest job of all in a company that's attempting to grow and change and build something that's new. It's hard because they really wear two hats. On the one hand, risk mitigation. The other is opportunity enabler.
Sure.
And so there are times when you want them to be mapping out where all the potholes what can break.
Yeah.
Where are your vulnerabilities? And that's, frankly, I can often hire outside advisors or contractors who can use a checklist and walk through where are the gaps, where are the holes, where are the vulnerabilities.
Sure.
It's that second talent that's so hard to find in a good CTO, the opportunity enabler. An ability to set aside some time, think about the strategic goals of the company, some of what you want to do over the next 12 to 18 months, finding ways to replace parts of your stack or shift your supply, your service providers in some small ways that could have open up huge opportunities commercially.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Wearing both hats is very hard.
Yes, absolutely.
It's almost switching brains, left brain, right brain.
It is, yeah. I've been fortunate enough to be a CTO for over a decade and at multiple companies, one that I helped found. But you're right, it is so easy to get wrapped up in the technology or the solution and not think through the bigger picture of who are you serving, why are you serving them, what is the competitive advantage that you have. Those kind of things are difficult.
They're not a natural.
No.
Yeah.
So to get back to some of the excitement around Farsight, can you kind of talk to me about the collaboration? You were talking about labs a moment ago. Can you talk to me about the collaboration between a laboratory team the patient has and where Farsight comes in with, kind of those clinical reports and intelligence?
Sure. Maybe an example from one experience from one of our current customers would be useful.
Yeah.
We're working with a customer who was running sequencing, had a very small gene panel that they were more or less comfortable with, but their treating physicians weren't satisfied. They were under pressure to expand their gene panel. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to completely replace or supplant what they had today, but we showed them how they could add on the side, run a side secondary test using our system, opened up their gene panel to 40 genes.
Wow.
With a set of a test panel that was pre-designed that better fit the needs of the treating physicians and the patients they were seeing. Mm-hmm. They dropped ours in place, ran the two side by side, decided they liked ours so much better. They swapped wholesale into our 40 gene panel. Well, no more than 6 months later, they realized that the cost difference between the 40 gene enrichment they were running and the whole clinical exome was so marginal that they might as well run the wet lab processing.
Wow.
So they moved to a much larger extraction process, sequencing the whole clinical exome. It's about a 9,000 gene code, all of the coding regions associated with 9,000 genes. Still just calling the 40 genes that their treating physicians wanted, but it opened up avenues that let them examine genes that were off panel to answer other research questions. Now, we liked this model so much, we went ahead and added some functionality to our app.
Wow.
That lets them do a requery lets them step back into a patient's data to ask a question about a specific gene that may not have been on the initial test report.
That is actually...
Treating physicians are excited about it because they're seeing the same patient 6 months later.
Sure.
Some new news has emerged, some new research has emerged. The physician can say, hey, these are 3 genes that I've heard a lot about. Can you go back and check to see if any of those 3 have disabling variants that I might want to use in guiding my patient toward the next treatment? So that's how we fit into the dialogue. Our technology's enabling. Yeah,
actually, that's where I was going to go. I was going to ask you, about use cases that you've seen where, the role of genomics is potentially, where genomics testing is revealing changes, or mutations in genes that have caused illness, and, ultimately how that relates to a patient making an informed decision moving forward. So I was thinking, oftentimes, let's say a listener to this podcast may not have a deep background in kind of the future of the present and the future of precision medicine and genomic testing. What should they be thinking about as they think about treatment and illnesses and discovery and those kind of things?
Great question. It's interesting. I have to admit that Farsight's very focused on helping physicians and patients at the time a treatment decision has to be made.
Yes.
We like to remind ourselves that next year, 10 million patients will sit down with a physician to sort out their treatment. And the majority of those dialogues would benefit from genomic data.
Wow.
That only the laboratory that serves them can provide in a way that's timely, that fits with that dialogue.
Wow.
Now, if for those who are just thinking about this field, the next phase of precision medicine, of course, will be prevention. What is it about the genetics that we inherit that predispose us to higher likelihoods of acquiring certain diseases? Fascinating field. It's moving really fast. It's going to take much longer to sort all of that out and introduce it into that patient-physician dialogue. There's an argument to be made that individuals will be discovering that aspect of precision medicine without the aid of a physician.
Wow.
With some likelihood.
Sure.
That's a little outside of Farsight's sphere.
Sure.
But I have no doubt that it will be the topic you'll be discussing 10 years from now.
That would be great. I have I have 3 little ones and a wife that today use tools like WebMD. So to have more, let's say, precision would be a great outcome.
I have no doubt that you could, in the comfort of your own home, be querying your genome.
Yes, absolutely. You've mentioned Farsight's app quite a bit. I'd love to know, you just mentioned talking about connecting physicians and patients. What are some of the features that physicians look to Farsight's app for?
Well, our app today is built primarily for a laboratory. The laboratory, that lets us ride on the shoulders of a medical professional who's trained to do the final interpretation and the formal release of the results to the physician. It's a nice control checkpoint, riding on the shoulders of licensed professionals.
Okay.
But because our app is browser-based and integrated into the delivery of healthcare, we really needed to ensure that we operate that application on a server that was well protected. This was one of our biggest concerns when we formed Farsight. While we know genomics, we know medicine, we know app development, the HIPAA requirements go far beyond just the formal HIPAA requirements. Most medical institutions have their own checklists of requirements. So we were really very glad to find a service provider partner who could help us solve that problem.
Yeah. No, that's great.
In a cost-effective way. I have to mention, we're really glad to be working with ClearData on that front.
We appreciate that, absolutely. You just brought up something interesting that I'm curious about. When I think about HIPAA guidance, a hot topic at the event that we're at right now is a lot of the new standards coming out for international work, whether it be GDPR or other clearance that are changing all the time. I'm curious, as you think about Farsight, either present or future, what markets do you serve, and where do you think it's going?
Yeah, interesting question. Particularly timely, Matt, because Farsight has opened a wholly owned subsidiary in China.
Oh, wow.
And has a core technology team there.
Wow.
We see translational science moving so fast. The US, China, and Europe. Some of the top researchers are discovering and unlocking these secrets of the genome. We expect to use cross-fertilize the science, but the genomic data itself is can't flow between, is not as free to flow between countries.
Mm-hmm. We see that
protected much more.
Yeah, we see data sovereignty issues constantly.
Yes.
Candidly, we work with lots of customers in my business that come to us because they can't move their data, and it's a difficult thing both to govern and understand the differences of things like data classification and data locality and all these kind of things. It's highly complex. First off, I actually didn't know that, so congratulations on China. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah. We're very excited.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
It's a terrific opportunity.
I could honestly go on forever, and we are out of time. So I'm curious, Glenda, from last question, in a perfect world, what is the state of the human genome research in 3 to 5 years? What does it look like?
Oh, that is a fantastically interesting question. I have to say, I would love to see, my wish is that we could completely elucidate the function of all of the proteins that we know are active, characterize them all as fully as the small handful that we research in such depth.
Wow. How far along are we?
I don't know. The top 200 that are in everyone's paper, I mean, in everyone's report, are exceedingly well characterized.
Okay.
There are 20,000 protein coding genes in the human genome.
Wow.
Many of them in just the last decade have moved from a number to at least a name.
Wow.
But most are really very poorly characterized. There's a lot of exciting work yet to be done. I'm glad there are many at university and translational medicine doing this important research.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You've taught me a lot today, actually. I did not know that one either. So, Glenda, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Matt. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you have a comment about today's episode, check out and follow hashtag CTO Talk on Twitter, or follow me at MP Ferrari. You can always learn more about CTO Talk on Healthcare Now Radio, where this will be out there soon, or at cleardata.com. I'm Matt Ferrari, and until we talk again, have a good week, everyone.